Hey there, church family. Rob here. It's day 50 plus one, so we're in Psalm 51. I want us to look at several of the verses there, but primarily consider the context and help us see that in Christianity, there's no place for pretending in our lives, in our churches. And so let's look at Psalm 51, see what we have to learn there. I want to look at verse 1 and then verses 10 through 14. Verse 1 says, "Have mercy on me, O God. According to your steadfast love, according to your abundant mercy, blot out my transgressions." And then verse 10, "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Cast me not away from your presence, and take not your Holy Spirit from me. Restore to me the joy of your salvation, and uphold me with a willing spirit. Then I will teach transgressors your ways, and sinners will return to you. Deliver me from blood guiltiness, O God, and O God of my salvation, and my tongue will sing aloud of your righteousness." Not going to unpack these verses in a significant way. I would encourage you, if you want that, if that would be helpful for you, on our website, the Sermon Archives, there's sermons on Psalm 51. There's one called David and God, and so that unpacks this whole psalm in a more full manner. But today, I just want to quickly focus our attention on the context of this psalm. It's a psalm of David when Nathan the prophet went to him after he had gone into Bathsheba. David writes this about one of the lowest points of his life. David puts on full display his failure for all to see. It's included here in the songbook of God's people. There's no whitewashing of history when it comes to his life. Hopefully, now that we've made our way through 50 some Psalms, you see that there's no place for pretending in our relationship with God. The Psalms expose to us times of brokenness and confusion and honesty about our failures, like we see here. And I think that's instructive for us. We don't want to be a community that pretends. We don't want to be a church that pretends. So in our community groups, in our Bible studies, do we find times where we're vulnerable about our brokenness? I'm not advocating that we show up and we just vomit that week's failures, but there is a place for us to share um, the brokenness that we've confessed to God, that we've admitted to God, and that we've seen His steadfast love and mercy transform and heal. We see that progression here in Psalm 51, right? He recognizes that he is broken and undone, and he receives grace. And then by the time verses 13 and 14 come around, he's teaching transgressors and he's singing praise. He's revealing God. In our community, we've got to start by recognizing that there is times where we're undone, where we're broken, where we have royally failed. If we don't talk about those times in our life, then to say that grace changes everything is sort of confusing. It's sort of trite, because if we're just good people, if we're morally upstanding individuals, we don't really need the grace to change anything. It's not until we're honest about our brokenness and how God's changed it that phrase has meaning, that this truth we proclaim has meaning, that the gospel is good news because of the bad news that we've messed up our lives and relationships. So let me encourage you, in your community groups, Bible studies, with friends, be willing to be honest about your brokenness. Take it first to God, but also be willing to share about it with others so that they might see that God's steadfast love and mercy changes people like David, changes people like you and me.